Hello, everybody. Welcome to Starting with Gel Printing. My name is Birgit Koopsen. I'm a brand ambassador for Gelli Arts and I am in the Netherlands. And today I'm going to tell and show you all about beginning with gel printing, how to treat your plate, how to clean your plate, how to create texture on the plate, and more of that kind of things. So let's just turn the camera around and I will start showing you some fun things. So here we go. Here I have my Gelli Arts gel printing plate, and this is a 5x7 plate. This is a new one that is actually still in the original packaging, and I'm just going to open it. And that's a little bit making a little bit of an hard sound. So let me take it out. So when you take out your gel plate from the packaging, this is what it looks like. So you have like a little booklet with instructions on how to use and clean your plate. And then you have your actual plate, and it is between two acetate sheets. And as you can see, it is really nice and clear. It's completely clear. And when you start using it, when you take it out of the package the first time, you have to take away those acetate sheets, and then you will not be using them again for storing your gel plate. So you can do whatever you want with them. You can throw them away, or you can use them to cut stencils from, or whatever you can think of using the acetate sheets, but you don't put them back on your gel plate. Why not? Well, if you have your gel plate and you try to put on an acetate sheet by hand, doing it like this, you will always end up with some air bubbles underneath. And I'm not sure if you can see it. Let me see. I think you can see it now, that there are air bubbles here. Sometimes they are even bigger than this. And it is really hard to get all of those air bubbles out of the way. It's almost like impossible. And when you store your gel plate with the acetate sheet on top, the pressure of the air will create a dent in the surface of your gel plate. And of course, that's not what you want, because if you have a dent or any impression in the surface of your gel plate, then you will see that in every print. And so it's better to just not use the acetate sheets, but instead of that, you put your gel plate between two sheets of copier paper, and then you store it in the original shell case that it came in. So put also a sheet of paper on top of this, and then just put it in here to store. So as you can see, my new gel plate here is really nice and clear, and it will only look like this for about one session. Once you start using your gel plate, it will very soon look like this. It will become a little bit cloudy, not completely clear anymore. That is first of because of the pigments that might be in your paints or in whatever products you're going to use on your gel plate. And it is also because you get rid of the gloss when you start working with products on top of the plate. And that is actually a good thing, because when you haven't used your gel plate yet, like this one, then the first time you use it, there might be some mineral oil left on top of the gel plate, and it might cause your paint to bead up a little bit. It might look a little bit like your acrylic paint looks like watercolor paint instead of acrylic paint, and you won't be able to really nicely spread the paint on your plate, and that's because of the oil that still might be there. So that will go away within a couple of printing sessions, probably already in the first one. And if you want to speed it up a little bit, you can clean your gel plate with baby oil. Just random normal baby oil, or you can, if you don't want to use baby oil, you can also use like vegetable oil, like olive oil or sunflower oil or something like that. Any oil will work. And you just rub it on your gel plate with a paper towel, and then clean it off, and then you can wash your plate with warm water or hand look water. And is that how you say it? Hand look warm water. Well, anyway, not hot water, but warm water and a little bit of soft soap, and then you will get rid of that oil, and then the paint will nicely spread and stick everywhere on the plate. So talking about cleaning your plate, let me get this one out of the way. I have one plate here that has some paint on it, some dried paint on it. And I could create a print out of it, but I left it on there because I want to show you the different ways that you can actually clean your plate. So there are several ways of cleaning your plate. You can use the baby oil, what I said before, to get off the little surface oil that is on the surface when you first open your plate. Can also be used to get the paint off your plate or whatever product you have on your plate. Even like very difficult pigmented products, like for instance pan pastel, which you won't get off with a wet cloth or with a baby wipe, will come off with baby oil. So that's one thing you can do, is add a couple of drops of oil and then take a wet cloth or a baby wipe and just clean it off. But a lot of times there is enough paint left on the plate to actually create some kind of print out of it. And then you can also do that in different ways. One way is using tape. So you can use clear tape, for instance, like packaging tape. And you can just place it on top of your dirty gel plate. And I would not say that this is a dirty gel plate, because this would normally just be a print, but I just want you to show you how you can clean a dirty plate with dried paint on it. So you can just rub the tape on your plate, make sure that it touches the paint everywhere, and then you can just lift up the paint, the tape, and then all the paint will come up with the tape. And a lot of times you actually end up with quite pretty tape. So I could actually add a layer of paint on top of this, and then the new color, the extra color, would show in the open areas. And then I could use this in any mixed media project. So then you don't waste any paint, basically. Another way of lifting up paint from the plate is make an actual print. So you can just add a color of paint to the paint on the plate, and you just roll it out. So if you in general would make prints where you don't wait for paint to dry in between layers, then there's usually going to be some paint left behind on the plate. But if you put paper on wet paint and you leave it there until the paint is completely dry, then you will be able to pull up all of the paint from the plate. So it depends a little bit on the technique, whether or not you will have dirty plates. Personally, I really like it when there is some leftover paint on the plate, because then when I start printing in a new session and there's already a little bit of paint on the plate, then it will show up in my first print and it will give a little bit more interest and a little bit more of a distressed look in my first print. So my first print will not be like completely clean. On the other hand, I also really like it when my prints turn out like perfect, for as far as you can make perfect prints, which means that I prefer not to leave any paint on the plate, because what's left on the plate is not in my print, which makes it a little less perfect print. So to get a really perfect print, it's better to leave your paper on the plate instead of pulling it up straight away. But I'm going to pull it up straight away. I'm not going to wait for it to dry completely. And therefore you can see that still a little bit is left behind, although most of it actually came off. And as I said, this makes a nice print. It's not like, it doesn't look like I was cleaning my plate, but this way you can clean your plate. But this little bit here, I'm not going to clean, because as I said before, I like it when there is a little bit of color on my plate when I start printing. So that will actually show up in my print, and it might be a color that I don't add at my print at all. And then a little bit of that extra color might just make the other colors pop. So I'm just going to create some basic prints, because there are many intricate techniques that you can do with a gel plate, but to start printing, it's best to start with the easiest techniques. And even with the very simple and easy techniques, you can get amazing results already. So it's really not bad starting with the easy techniques. So I think before I actually start printing, let me tell you a little bit about the tools that you can use to create texture. So a lot of people think that gel printing is a really expensive hobby, because the plate is not really cheap. And then you need all the things to create texture on your gel plate. And that's not really true, because once you have the plate, then you can just look around in your house and you will be amazed by the things you already have at home that you can create beautiful textures with. And today I'm just going to use only found objects and textures that I made myself. So I'm not going to use any bought textures, because I want to show you that when you have the plate and a brayer, that you can already start printing and you don't have to buy a lot of extra tools. So some of the things that I really like printing with is, for instance, bubble wrap. So I have like a giant bubble wrap here. And as you can see, it's been used very well. So a lot of paint on there, but you can use it over and over and over again. At some point, all of them might break and then you need a new piece, but you can use it very long time. What I also really like to use is found objects like cardboard in different shapes and sizes. So this is all just from packaging material, and this is all just simple cardboard. Let me see, here's another one. So packaging material, you can do fun stuff with this. This is a piece of cardboard from a cardboard box, and it's like, usually you have like these, how do you call them, ridges between two layers of paper. And then when you peel off the top layer, you get this like texture. And then especially when you leave some little bits of paper on, so you're not like, I have one here that I almost completely took the top layer off, but on this one I left a little bit more of the paper on, so it gives you a really nice distressed texture that you can print with. This is from also packaging material. This is also from a thicker, sturdier packaging material. And again, I just peeled off the top layer side. And then this is on the inside. And again, I left some bits of paper on because I like the texture, the extra texture that it gives. This also cardboard packaging material. So whenever you get a box, from now on, you will probably look at the box and see if there's some kind of cardboard in there that you can use for printing. This is also the honeycomb packaging material with the top layer removed. So here you can see how you remove it. So this was like on both sides. And then you can just peel it off. And if you want to make it easier to peel it off, you could spray it with a little bit of water and let it sink in a little bit, and then it peels off even easier. But as you can see, it's a fun tool to create texture with. Then I have got some of my favorites are pill blisters or chewing gum blisters. So I asked my entire family to hold on to any empty pill blisters because I like to use them to create dots in my prints. And later on, I will show you what that actually looks like when you print with these. Here is like a little texture plate that I created from bread bag clips, the ones that are used to close plastic bags for bread or something like that. And I just glue them to a piece of cardboard, and then I can use them to create texture in my prints. Also something like thread or yarn, like eyelash yarn like this, gives really nice textures. I also glued some buttons to a piece of cardboard. And you can print with that, and it actually looks like a stamp. Or you can create your own textures using hot glue. So you can just add textures to a piece of cardboard with your hot glue gun and create textures with that. There are actually a couple of classes that I did for Michael's on the Michael's playlist on the Gelli Arts YouTube channel. And I think Dominique already put it in the chat, or she will put it in the chat. But on the playlist, there are several classes that I taught for Michael's and Gelli Arts about creating your own texture tools. So these, for instance, are made with craft foam, also handmade. This is also a texture plate handmade with craft foam. And I could go on and on forever. I have one more here. Actually, I did a blog post for Gelli Arts last month about this. So this is made from paper tubes, like toilet paper or paper towel tubes. And there's a blog post on the Gelli Arts blog, gelliartsblog.com, about how to create these and how to use them. So let's just start and do some printing. I think that's what you want to see. So the paper that you want to print on can be any paper you like. So you can print on tissue paper, you can print on cardboard, you can print on copier paper, you can print on watercolor paper. There are many types of paper that you can print on, but today I'm just going to print on card, like a white card, quite sturdy. This is from the Recollections collection from Michaels, which will probably also, oh, I see it popping up in the chat right now. So this is the type of paper that you can do nice printing on, and you can use it for a number of things, from card making to collage and die cutting. So it has many uses when you use card like that. So for the simple techniques, I usually do 2 layers. The first layer is going to be a plain color, or 2 or 3 colors, but without texture. And then I print a second layer on top with some texture. So that's what I'm actually going to show you now. And I'm going to print today with Amsterdam acrylics and with Liquitex acrylics. And these are both also available at Michaels. And these are like the student grade acrylics from the brands Amsterdam, Talents Amsterdam and Liquitex. And these are really nice to work with, especially when you are a beginner. Basically, you could use any acrylic paint. It doesn't really matter, even the cheaper acrylic paints will work, but what you have to keep in mind is that when you use paint that is a little bit more expensive, like the Amsterdam or the Liquitex, that you get a nicer quality of paint, which means that it has a nice consistency that spreads nicely on the plate, but also has more pigments, which makes your prints look nicer, brighter, deeper colors. And I think if you can create prints that you are really happy with because they look nice, that you are more likely to enjoy gel printing. So I always recommend to just spend a little bit more on the paint. It's not that it really is so much more expensive, because you only need a tiny little bit of these paints. Usually you need more of the cheaper paints, and the results are so much better that you will so much more like your prints, that it will be worth it. So a tube like this really goes a long way. Now, to roll out the paint on the plate, we need a brayer. So I have this is the most used size of brayer. So we have one from Gelli Arts, but there's also one from Speedball. The Speedball one is a soft rubber, and the Gelli Arts one is a harder rubber. And it is really a matter of personal preference which one you like to use. Then I also have a smaller one, also from Speedball. I use this on the smaller plates, but also if I want to be more precise about where I want my colors to go. And then I have a larger one, which is actually a lino roller. You can find this on the lino roller on the website. And I really like to use this one if I want to have several colors next to each other on my plate. And then with a larger brayer, it's easier to blend them nicely without having to pick up the brayer and put it in another area and moving color around from one side to the other. And I will show you the difference, because I'm now going to print the first base layer. And I'm going to do 2, and I'm going to show you one with the normal size brayer and one with the wider brayer to show you the difference. Because I think that would make more sense than just telling you. Let me see, what other color do I want? How about a yellow? So I just add some paint to my plate. And actually, I used a little bit too much paint here. A little bit less can do. So what do I do if I have a little bit too much paint? Well, I always have a small stack of copier paper next to my gel plate, and I use that to roll off my brayer. And that's not only to clean my brayer, but it's also to roll off excess paint, because you can only get nice prints if you have a nice and thin layer of paint on your plate. If you have too much paint on your plate, your paper will not be able to pick it up, all of it, and then you will lose the texture. So, and also if you have a thick layer of paint and you try to push something like, for instance, the bubble wrap in it, the bubble wrap can also only pick up a certain amount of paint. And if there's too much paint on your plate, you will not get open areas. So it's really important that this layer is like really thin. So I'm going to roll this out, and I want the colors to blend. So I go a little bit from the left to the right. And as you can see, I can only do these two colors at one time because my brayer is not any wider. So now I have to clean off this. And then I have to move to this side to add the yellow one. And I also want to blend that with the pink. But I'm then going to pick up some of that pink that I rolled out there. And it's not always really easy to get a nice blend in the colors, although this one actually didn't turn out too bad, I think. And then I just place my paper on top. So as I said before, if you put the paper on top and you pull it up right away after rubbing well, then some paint might stay behind on the plate, depending on how much paint was on there. So as you can see, a little bit of the yellow stayed behind, and here some of the pink, and here a little bit of blue, but that was probably because I didn't rub it well enough, because there is an open spot here. So I could have picked that up. If you have exactly the right amount of paint, then you will probably pick up all of it. And if you're not sure if you have the right amount of paint and you want to be sure that you pick it all up, then instead of picking up the paper straight away, you can also just leave it on the plate for, and depends a little bit on the circumstances, but for a couple of minutes. If you are in Mexico, then you probably need less minutes than when you are in the Netherlands. Or if you are in a very dry environment, it will take less time to dry than when you are in an area where it's very humid. So you have to experiment and try a little bit about that. Of course, I won't be able to pick it up now anymore because I already picked it up. But when you leave it on until all of the paint is dry, then it will just all be stuck together. And if you pull up the paper, all of the paint will automatically, all of the dried paint will automatically come up with the paper, because the plate is made to release paint. It will only keep paint on the plate if there is too much paint for the paper to hold and it's still wet. So even if you print on tissue paper, for instance, which is really thin and can hold only a very thin layer of paint, if you leave it to dry, it can actually pull up any amount of paint, because once the paint is dry, it will just all stick together. So if you like these little leftover bits, then you can totally pull up the print straight away. But if you don't like it, you can leave the paper on and make sure all of the paint comes up. That is, of course, also if you want a perfect print. If you don't want stuff like this to happen, then you leave your paper on the plate. because then you get a perfect print. I have to say, you have to make sure that all of the paint is like really dry, and also the paper is really dry, because if parts of the paint are dry and some parts are not, or if some parts of the paper are still a bit moist, then your paper might tear, because the wet paper will not be able to pull up dry paint. So if it ever happened to you that you pulled up a print and paper was stuck to the plate, then you didn't wait long enough. You waited too long to pull right away, and you didn't wait long enough to pull a dry print. So that's something to keep in mind. So let's also do one, although this actually didn't turn out too bad. Let me show you how to do it with the larger brayer. And again, I'm just going to add a couple of colors. And this is then going to be the base prints, and I'm going to add some texture on top of those. So if you have the larger brayer, then you only have to like wiggle a little bit from the left to the right to make the colors blend in the middle. Also, what you have to do when you roll out the paint is to put down your brayer, roll, lift it up, put it down and roll. Not roll like this, because if you roll like this, then the paint will only be in like this area and not go all around your brayer, which causes like a little bit oval shaped parts of paint, and you will not get a nice and even layer of paint. So always put down, lift up, put down, lift up, instead of doing this. So now I just go a little bit from the left to the right with my brayer to get a nice and even blend in one go. And again, I'm using my copier paper here at the side to clean up my brayer. So if I want to do another print after this one, the paint on the brayer is not going to mix with my new colors. So let me put a sheet of paper on top again. And again, I'm just going to rub and pick it up straight away, because we don't want to sit around and watch paint dry. And for these techniques, for me, it's totally okay if the prints are not perfect and not all of the paint is coming up. So here we have the second print. And I'm just going to put that aside to dry too, because it's best if you do a second print on top of a first print to make sure that the paint on your print is completely dry, because if the paint is still a bit wet, it will not be able to pick up more paint, or at least not enough paint from the plate, and you might not get a really nice print. So it's always important to do a second layer on a dry previous layer, and for the third and the fourth layer, of course, if you want to do them, it's the same. So let's leave these to dry. I'm going to do one more background print before I start using the textures. And I actually want to show you another tool that might be handy. So here I have the mini placement tool. And the mini placement tool can be used if you want to do multiple layered printing and you want every layer to be in exactly the same position. So if you are going to cut up your prints like a print like this and you're going to cut them up, then it's not so important if the next layer is going to be a little bit outside, out of the outside of the first print, because you're going to use parts of it. But what if you want to do nice printing and you want a border around your print, and or you are going to work with masks and you want your layers all to be in exactly the same position? Well, then you can use this tool. And what you need is your paper. You can cut it afterwards in the right size, or you can cut it in the right size before printing. And I don't have any paper in the right size here, but that doesn't matter. Well, actually it does matter. I need a larger sheet of paper. Let me see. I was pretty sure that I had it here ready to use, and now I don't see it. Okay. Maybe wrong drawer. Anyway, I'm just going to use a large sheet. It will give the same effect so you can see how it works. So I'm going to create a background like the previous two. I'm just going to add color, paint to it, and this time I'm not going to blend them in stripes like I did before, but I'm just going to randomly roll them out and mix them a little bit like this. And then I can use my perfect placement tool, my mini placement tool. And when I place my paper on top of my plate, I'm going to put it right there in the corner. Then move it away. Rub it well. Lift it up. And there I have my print. And now when I want to print on top of this, I can use the tool again. Put paint on the plate, use my tool, put this in the same position, and I will know for sure that my second layer will be in the exact same position. So I'm going to do that. I'm just quickly going to dry the paint because I want to print on top. So I just used the heat gun to dry my paint. You can never use your heat gun on the gel plate. No heat near the gel plate. If you really want to speed up the drying time of your paint on the plate, you can use like a hair dryer on cold setting, but you can never use any heat on the plate because it might melt, and that is of course not what you want. Okay, let's create some texture. So I'm going to add contrasting colors to the plate, colors that are contrasting to this print, because I'm going to print on top of this one. Yeah. So usually I start with my background colors being the lighter colors, and then printing with the darker colors on top. That's the easiest way to do it. Although you can totally do it the other way around, work with lighter colors on top of darker colors, but then you have to make sure that your colors are opaque. Because if you have translucent colors, the layers of printing are so thin that you will totally see the previous layer shine through the next layer and it will change your colors. So it's a little bit harder to do lighter colors on top of darker colors, but it's totally doable. Okay, now I'm just going to use any of the textures that I showed. So I'm just going to do the bubble wrap on this side, and I really push it into the paint so it picks up paint from the plate, creating that bubble wrap texture. So basically every area of your texture that touches the plate will pick up paint and that way create the texture. So this is the peel strip. I'm just going to push that also into the wet paint. And you can sure imagine that if you have a really thick layer of paint, that the open areas would be not as clean as when you have a very thin layer of paint. So that's why it's so important that you work in very thin layers. So here I have some really old, a very old stencil, like from a school stencil, which will also give really fun texture. Just pressing it down into the paint, then lifting it up. And now I'm going to use my placement tool again. And this print, I'm going to place it in the same position in the corner of the placement tool.
Birgit, do you clean the pieces that you use for texture?
I usually don't. Oh, look at that.
Oh, gorgeous.
Isn't that pretty?
Love that.
So yeah, that's what I meant with you really don't need expensive tools to create, and you don't need very intricate or difficult techniques to create really nice prints. You can do it with really simple objects, and with just 2 layers, you can already get like beautiful prints that you can use as backgrounds for your art journal, or you can die cut shapes from it, or you can make cards out of it. You can do so many things with these. So this is really turned out really nice. So what you say about cleaning my tools like these, I just usually don't clean them. I don't know, I have used these so many times already and they still work perfectly. And you know, with stuff like this, as if at any time this would not work well anymore, I would just take a new piece of cardboard, or I would just take a new peel strip. If I work with like texture plates or stencils that are made for gel printing or for crafting, like for any brand, like I don't know, a Ranger or like Tim Holtz stencils or whatever. I every now and then I toss them in a bucket with water and some soap. So here in the Netherlands we have a soap called Biotex, which is like a hand washing detergent with enzymes, and that I leave it in there overnight, and then the next day I can just rinse them and they are clean again. And in America you have Murphy's oil soap, which works the same, and I also use it to clean my brayers. So I clean off my brayer on this paper at the side, and then I can use them many times before it really builds up paint and it's not nice to use them anymore. Then you can just take this part out of the brayer. You toss this in a bucket with water and some of the Murphy's oil soap. Leave it in there for an hour, or if it's like really built up with paint, overnight. And then the next day you can just rinse it and it will be, all of the paint will come off. So that's how I clean my tools. If I clean them, I don't always. I have to say I'm a dirty crafter. And I'm a lazy crafter too, because I just, yeah, I just want to take the time to clean it. I can do other stuff during that time, you know. But you can. So let's do another texture, because it's fun to see those textures, right? You can also build up textures on a background instead of doing like one print. Like for this one, I rolled out the paint on my entire plate, and then I created texture on the entire plate and did one pull to create a texture. But you can also build it up in different colors, for instance. So how about I'm going to print on this one, and I'm going to start with on this side with this color, and I'm only going to roll out this part of my plate. Until I have a nice and thin layer again. And I'm going to use, let me see, how about I use the buttons? So the handmade button stamp. Just going to push it in there. And I really have to push it down a bit because the buttons are not all the exact same height. So I have to make sure that they touch the paint everywhere, because otherwise you will not be taking any paint away. So now I can print straight onto this background, or I can add another color, create a texture, another color, create a texture, and then print it. But then this area might already be dry, so I'm just going to pull it straight away. And I did not use my mini placement tool for this print for the first one, so I can also not use it for the second layer. So I just have to guess and hope it is somewhere in the right area. And that's actually not too bad. So that's the first texture. Then I'm going to roll out another color here in the middle. And use a different texture for this area. So how about the hot glue texture? Just going to push it in there, lift it up. And as you maybe already can see, this gives a very organic texture. And again, lift it up. Okay, I think you can tell that I used a little bit too much paint, because there are not really very crisp details. There is a little bit too much paint left in what should be the open areas, and you can also tell that there's quite some paint left on the plate, what was not picked up by my background. And that's because I had a little bit too much paint here. So that's why I always keep repeating, that you have to make sure that you don't use too much paint on your plate. And as you can see, even I sometimes end up with too much paint anyway. It's also not every paint is the same, and sometimes you have a new paint or even a new color. A different color, like two colors of the same brand, might react differently. It also depends on how opaque they are. The consistency of the paint might be a little bit different when it's more translucent than when it's more opaque. So you also have to find out how much you actually need of each type of paint. So how about for the last one, we use just this simple piece of cardboard. The simplest tool you can think of is a piece of cardboard with the top layer peeled off. But it's such a fun effect. So I'm just going to push it down. And then place my print on top. So what I just showed you with the middle color and the paint, too much paint staying behind on the plate, that's also something that will not happen when you leave your paper on the plate until everything is dry. So if you want to make sure, oh, look at that. Isn't that nice? I mean, I really like this. I really like the distressed look. Of course, if you like more of a clean look, then this might not be your perfect print, but I like it that there are little bits of the previous colors coming up because there was some leftover paint here from the previous print. That there are some areas where the paint did not pick up completely and you have some open areas. So I really like these kind of prints. So if you really want clean prints, then you should clean your plate, because then you will not get that. So as I said, you can put paint on here, put the paper on, and just leave it on until everything is completely dry, and then you will get all of the paper off or all of the paint off. But if you don't want to wait for that, you can put that baby oil on and the baby wipe, and you can just wipe off all of that leftover paint. And you will end up with a really clean plate. So sometimes you think that your plate is clean until you start cleaning it with a baby wipe, and then you will be amazed about how the baby wipe looks, how much dirt actually still comes off the plate. So if you want to do some really nice printing and you want clean prints, then it's always a good idea to clean your plate with a baby oil before you start printing. Okay, let's do one more texture, and meanwhile, let me know if there are any questions that I can quickly answer before the end of this hour.
Birgit, we do have a question from Alex. Is there a number of paint layers when this doesn't work, or does it only depend on the dryness?
You mean like cleaning the plate?
Alex, if you want to comment a little more just to ask so we can make sure Birgit gets your question answered.
I think she means picking up dried paint from the plate. If there is a limit to the layers of paint that are on there. Well,
Yes,
I'm
Alex
sure.
just said, yes, that's it. You got it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I suppose at some point there will be there at some point it might be too many layers, but I have made prints with up to 5 or 6 layers, and it still worked because when the paint is dry, it actually is like a solid layer, and acrylic paint turns into a kind of like a plastic layer, and it's like a solid layer. So when you lift up that layer, everything connected to that layer will come up with that layer. So all of the layers come up, also because the plate is made to release the paint, and so it's not going to hold on to the paint. It's actually really easy to lift it up. So you can do that with the tape, and you can do that with the paper. But when you do it with the paper and you have multiple layers, make sure that you leave everything to dry completely, because as long as there are still parts wet, you will not be able to pull everything up. This is also, like, I hope that answered the question.
We
This
have
is
2 more questions that I'm seeing.
okay.
Asking, 1, if you've ever used different colors of cardstock, and 2, if you can show us some finished pieces that you've used of some of the prints you've made in the past.
Okay,
Or
so so this is the texture of the packaging material. Yes, so have I printed on other colors of cardstock? Yes, I have. And what I especially like is printing on, for instance, black cardstock and using white or gold or silver paint, which is like gives a really nice contrast on a darker background. So, but you have to make sure that your paints are opaque if you use a colored background. But using colored cardstock is basically the same as using a colored background like this. So whether this is a layer of paint or this is a piece of colored cardstock, that doesn't really matter. So you can print on any color background, or even on backgrounds with textures already, or like book paper, or yeah, any type of background you can basically print on. And then as for finished pieces, well, I don't do a lot of like really finished pieces. Like I don't use all of my prints to create something out of them, because I mainly focus on the techniques and teaching the different techniques that people can use in their work. But you can also make prints that are like a finished piece of art by itself. So I think something like this would be ready to frame. This is made with flowers, so it's basically just a layer of green paint. Then I stamped into the green paint with a flower, and then I used a yellow and a Titan buff paint to color in the open areas before I put the print. So that's something that you can do with gel printing. This one was made with one of these toilet paper tubes. And so I printed first, creating the outline of the shape with the paper tubes, and then I used paint markers to add all the little dots and details. And here's another one with that technique. This is actually the one that I used to print this one, as you can see. I also really like to print with leaves. So this is just leaves from outside. I just went outside and got some leaves, and then I created this print. So what I basically did is I created a background first, like I did here today, a colored background. Then I rolled out black paint on the plate, placed the leaves on top, and then I added the paper on top. So basically the leaves are like masks. So they mask off the area and you don't get any black paint there. So I also have done a lot of bookmaking. So I make a lot of, I turn my prints into books, little books, and they are then art journals, and you can use the backgrounds to work on. A lot of card making, so you can use the backgrounds to cut off. I don't know, are we getting over the hour? I mean, that's okay for me, but I'm not sure if Zoom is going to let us go on for a little longer.
We can go just for a little longer.
If
Maybe
we have
5
like
minutes at most.
2-3 minutes, then I can quickly get some cards and show them.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay. It's just a minute, but then people get an idea what I do with my prints when I say I use them to die cut from and then make cards. Then it's something like this. So I don't know if it's the big screen. Yes. So here you see some cards that I made, and I used my prints to cut out hearts. And then I glued them on a colored background. And then, yeah, you just have some cards. So that's really nice if you have a big stack of prints like this, and you have a die cutting machine, or you can cut them by hand, of course. And then you have a lot of a big variety of little shapes, and you can make some cards. So I saw a question about a YouTube channel. So Gelli Arts has a YouTube channel, and it's filled with hundreds and hundreds of videos. Michael's classes, but also blog posts and a lot of instructional videos. So I would definitely check that out. I will be back next month in November. I will be back with 12 days of card making. So I hope you will join us again then. And meanwhile, you can find a lot of gel printing inspiration on the Gelli Arts blog and on the Gelli Arts YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope to see you soon again. Bye.